waiting. What's up, Elf? Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. You all made it. Congratulations. I'm glad you're here. Tons of people waiting for the live to start on the tube of you. I appreciate you all very much for being here. Um, and hello, everybody on TikTok. As I'm being informed, people are funneling in over here as well. What's up, Fergs? What's up, Jarmani? What's up, Phil? Um, What's up, Elf? What's up? Trees are cool, which they are cool. I agree with your consent with your attitude there. Carla in the chat, Nataki in the chat, everybody popping in. CKK, my fellow Americans, good morning. Good morning, good morning all. Um Hope you're having a great start to the day. We've got a lot to get into. I've got what I would consider to be a pretty good show planned for the remainder of the day. And here's the best part. For the first time all week, I have 2 hours to myself to talk to you guys. I don't have any guests. It's just you and I. What's funny is this was the norm on OG outside the box, but you know, we're getting a little more community engaged, and as I've been saying, we're kind of gonna spread the tentacles out as time goes on, but more on that later. Um, we've got a pretty comprehensive show to get into today, and I'd like to start with yesterday evening. I see Phil talking about the smoke as well. Again, much like Thursday morning, I haven't gone outside my apartment yet, but every time I go out, I feel it. And the smoke has made it all the way to my hometown. Pittsburghers are dealing with this. It's what I see 130 million people under smoke advisories right now. Um, I was thinking to myself because Texas is underwater and it's very serious. What's up, Jay? It's very serious. I'm not making light of the matter whatsoever. People are losing their lives and they are expecting more water, despite the fact that a large percentage of the state is already underwater. But you have Texas currently dealing with a flood. You have the northern part of the country dealing with some of the smokiest air we've had to deal with in a very long time. And you've got a bacteria running around this country that is causing people to essentially poop out their intestines. That's how violent their bowel movements are as a result of this disease that only came back as a result of Doge and the fact that Elon Musk is the dumbest wealthy person on the face of the earth. Had Kamala Harris won the presidency in 2024 and all these things happened, MAGA would be running around telling you that this was foretold in the Bible and we are in the end times. I'm here to tell you that it's three terrible situations, two of which in all likelihood are brought about by climate change. And that's the way a normal human being should want to talk about this kind of stuff. But unfortunately, I don't think we have a lot of those. What's up, Jen? Fell asleep listening to the live last night. I have that effect on people. The show's not particularly engaging. Um, but yeah, that speech killed me, metaphorically. TikTok, don't. What's up, Mickey? Um, but yeah, that speech was rough. But so it's bad out there right now in terms of natural disasters. And of course, we're supposed to all act as if this is just par for the course, and I'm not willing to pretend that these kind of escalating feels like there's some kind of once in a generation flood 4 times a year at this point. This is my 4th year in the Fox Valley, and I believe it's my 4th year with some kind of shitty smoke-filled air that we had to figure out how to deal with. And plenty of you that have lived here for your entire lives have explained to me that this is not the norm. This is not the version of Wisconsin that you grew up in. These forest fires are not as common. Because I'll be the first. I'll be the first to admit it. Like these fires could be caused by somebody flicking a cigarette. You know what I mean? Um, it doesn't necessarily have to come about by these dry, arid conditions once in a while. The fact that it's happening as often as it is would probably lend itself to people thinking maybe something else is amiss here. But of course, a lot of money goes into this country to make sure that nobody makes that jump. And unfortunately, plenty of us are willing to fall for that. What's up, gamer? All the files uploaded to the White House website are BS with no evidence. You know what's funny? I tried to check it out. Well, we'll get into it. But I tried to check those files out, and the website was crashed last night. And when I went this morning, I didn't even care to find them because the speech was such bullshit that the fact that it wasn't readily available for me made me lose interest. Um, Alex Greenhair says, correct. This has been happening since COVID. Okay, that tracks. Uh, Thank you, Canadian government, for being so concerned about nothing. Please, please, please make more memes about how bad the US is and keep throwing Indigenous women from high rises instead of managing. I feel that. Over 800 fires in Canada, says Global Solidarity Now. Phil and Oshkosh saying it's all because of those damn Canadians. I feel that. Justin says, my cousin who worked in Canada often said they let their fires burn to renew the ecosystem, essentially. Um, well, that's interesting. Isn't it because they're not raking enough? There was one guy named Michael who listened to me terrestrially. I don't know if he made it to the digital version of the show or not, but there was one guy terrestrially that would get so mad because like now that there's a video component to this, I can say something with dry sarcasm and then just kind of smile at you guys and then keep talking. On radio, the smile doesn't translate. So I'm just like, I'm pretty sure it's because we're not raking enough. And then I just move on to the next thing. And um sometimes that makes people mad when they don't understand what happened. Gamer says the type of forests do need fires to be healthy, but I feel like this is a little excessive. Fair enough. But Ali, don't put better Kirby emojis better than the one I have, please and thank you. Um, but so yeah, another shitty morning here in the Fox Valley in terms of air quality, but take solace in the fact that we're not alone. Um, it feels like we're always inching closer and closer to that scene in Mad Max Fury Road when Immortal Joe is up above everyone and he turns the water faucets on. Morning, Mikey. And everybody runs up with their bowls, and after like 30 seconds, he turns it off and says, don't get addicted to water. You'll grow to resent its absence. And like, similar to the joke I just made, everybody in society in that movie was also in the same boat. But I gotta say, I'd rather we just reverse course and make sure the water's still drinkable. Maybe like don't ruin it through mining operations, through data centers and things of that nature. But something tells me that I'm just going to be called tree hugger for that, and we're going to continue doing those things in the name of the almighty dollar. Um, I was speaking with somebody about those mining operations, and I don't know a lot about fish. I met a couple of pretty cool dudes at the ALPR meeting on Wednesday, and they were talking to me about how I believe it was either trout or salmon. And if they catch this and they realize that neither of those are right, or that I forgot which breed of fish, I do apologize for that. But they can only handle um, a few degrees difference in the change of the water temperature that they're dealing with in the mining operations that are getting approved in the northern part of the state and all over this country are absolutely going to increase the heat of the water, which is going to have an adverse effect on the species that live in there. What's up, Keto? What's up, Larry? What's up, Susan? Um, it's salmon. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Elf. Um, and like, not to pat myself on the back, but uh I told you guys 3 years ago that if Donald Trump won, he would refuse to fund the war in Ukraine and allow Russia to take over the mining rights in Ukraine and begin mining in America. And nobody would even make the jump in their mind that the only reason Democrats weren't mining in America wasn't because they care about the environment. They were willing to mine other people's nations and willing to give them hundreds of billions of dollars to defend that land rather than mine America. I'll allow you to debate amongst yourselves whether or not you think that's a valid strategy or not. But I've said when Trump leaves or when Trump becomes president, he's going to allow Russia to mine Ukraine. He's going to open up mining operations in America. And the argument in America would be environmental worth versus economic. And nobody would put two and two together that the reason all these operations are popping up now is because we're essentially giving up on the Donbass region in Ukraine. And you're watching that play out right in front of your face. And if you're newer to the show, you never heard me say that. But if you're an OG listener, You know that I've been saying that for years, and you're watching that come out to fruition in front of our faces, and nobody is having the debate about why we weren't mining 3 years ago. And I'm telling you right now, it's not because liberals are tree huggers. Not a lot of smoke in Buffalo, Robin says. Good, good. I mean, some people got to be able to deal with it. Biernowitz, think I was on last time. Don't worry if you're not open panel today. Oh no, don't worry about it. If you want to say something, here, hold on. I'm not sure who I don't remember you being on, but please do anybody's allowed to chime in with thoughts on the matter. It's always welcome. Um all I ask is that you keep your comments, within range, within reasonable range. Don't talk for 15 minutes or whatever, but anybody's willing to punch that stream in and hop on. Yeah, okay, there they are. Let's see who we're dealing with here and what they'd like to say.
Hey, hello.
Hey, you're on Outside the Box. What's going on?
Oh, nice to see you again, Ben. I can't remember the last time I was on. I think it was a while ago. But we were like talking similar about this. By the way, is my audio, is it okay? There's
You're
no
great.
issues,
You're
no
great. Yeah,
feedback.
you're fantastic.
Okay. Any issues, just let me know.
Right on.
Wait,
Oh, we lost you. That
no, no,
wasn't
no.
even me.
I thought you said something, so I stopped.
Oh, no, carry on. Go ahead.
No, yeah, because I remember last time we were talking about this, and um, like as I said, I don't come on here to debate or be like, "Oh, you're wrong, I'm right. Let me tell you why." I just like to get
Absolutely.
other
Go
people's
for it.
perspectives and hear their side, because you can't like flood yourself with what you believe is right. You have to hear from the other side. You have to speak to other people. You know what I mean? And
1000%. So what's
yeah,
on your mind?
well, you were speaking about Trump and that. About Ukraine, and then before that, with it's all about the dollar amount. I do agree with you. Ukraine's a bit more tricky, but I will agree with you with Trump. It's all about a dollar amount.
Sure. Yeah, I
Because
mean, I'm on board with you there. And again, I don't want it to sound like I'm boiling Ukraine down to dollars and cents. Like, obviously, what Russia is doing is reprehensible, and in that story, Ukraine absolutely deserves to be defended in that manner. Where my frustration stems from it is there's reporting that there was an opportunity for Russia and Ukraine to achieve a peace deal prior to any of this starting, and Anthony Blinken, along with Boris Johnson formerly of England, kind of got together with Zelensky and some of the higher ups in Ukraine, and then ultimately decided to pursue armed conflict for the better part of the last 4 years,
mm,
um, in my opinion. Rather
yeah,
than trying to find an economic agreement with Russia and share the minerals and maybe have to open up mining operations here in America under Democrat control. They would
mm,
rather allow the fighting to continue with the potential for us to reclaim the Donbass region. And that, to me, as an anti-war leftist, I would have rather just found a way to share the resources. It's all for a bunch of technology most of us don't want anyway. So, like,
yeah.
not the
It's
end of my
because
world there.
yeah. I
But
don't get me wrong. I'm anti-war myself. I don't want to see um like, even though I wasn't around for it, reading about like the conflicts where America's got involved in the Gulf and the Middle East, and it's overcomplicated, but at the end of the day, it's still troops who are being deployed and coming home injured or dead, and I don't want that. With Ukraine, yeah, we could potentially reach a settlement. I know there's always been a big fear of the reason why Russia wants the Donbass region is because it's access to the Black Sea, and I can
sure.
understand why it might be fearsome for some people to have a fleet dock right on the doorstep of Europe, but we still should strive towards, let's see if we can get the two sides together, because I'm pretty sure at this point now, after all the fighting, Russia will reach a breaking point and go, we don't want to fight anymore. We saw that in Chechnya with the Russians. We saw it in Georgia. It can be achieved, but yeah, it shouldn't be something that's drawn out.
I couldn't agree with you more. I like your attitude on the matter, and I think you have great perspective. I appreciate you chiming in on the show today. I hope you'll do it more often.
Thank you.
Yeah, you take it easy.
Yeah.
I like that guy. I should have asked him how he found the show. Type in the comments how you found the show. Um, but I appreciate that. I know nothing about. I can't catch up on that right now. But so in any event, that's my thoughts on mining. And I see Larry saying they've had mining in the UP in Wisconsin forever. I'm right there with you. I'm not acting like this is some kind of new phenomenon. I am saying that there is a search that is much more aggressive. What's up, Charles or Chuck? Sorry, your name. I just read what I see. Um, I think there is an uptick in this because so many of these materials are necessary for semiconductor chips. The reason why semiconductor chips are popular right now is because that's a technology that goes in your smartphones and in a lot of new cars that are created and are absolutely necessary for AI to run. You may remember there was a big story that broke in 2025 that China, despite having semiconductor chips that are generations behind where America is, or maybe are able to come across with more robust versions of AI, showing that maybe we should have been doing a little more DEI. But in any event, those semiconductor chips are necessary for AI, a tech that a lot of us are kind of iffy on and don't even know if we want. So as a result, wars and environmental destruction are coming as a result of that. And I mean, people will focus on the Trump boys, Trump men, not boys, they're in their fucking 40s, the Trump men, um, investing in these mining companies and then essentially getting all the government deals. And that is a very obvious version of corruption. And we'll be getting into Trump based corruption throughout the show today. But there are chips. Get out of here, Alec. But that is cause for concern, but that's not the main focus point from my perspective. I don't care who's monetizing it. The fact that it's being monetized, and I don't think we're asking the right questions, is probably the bigger issue in regards to that. But so I wasn't even intending to talk about Ukraine and mining and all that today, but just to go off on the side tangent. And Ali says they aren't semiconductor chips, Ben. They're chips that use semiconductors. Ali, I'm from Pittsburgh. We say things the way we say them. I also call them pistachio nuts. Turns out pistachio is a type of nut, and calling it a pistachio nut is redundant. I'm not changing, and I'm not going to stop calling it a semiconductor chip either. I prayed, started my coffee, and went right to hating Trump. Geez, what's the matter with me? Nah, Susan, you were right. That was where the show was going to start. So last night, I do Ben After Dark, Monday through Thursdays. If you guys aren't joining those, you should be. They're a little more, I mean, these are fun. I enjoy doing these quite a bit, and we have fun doing them. The After Darks are quasi nonsensical, but it seems like a lot of people are into it. Um, Yesterday we did a Trump pregame, and then I turned my TV up very loud, and we all watched the Trump speech together. Now I anticipated an 8-minute speech of nonsense, and what I got was a 27-minute speech of nonsense. And here's what's wild about it. We're going to start here. CNN, MSNBC, ABC News, a bunch of these guys decided they weren't even going to carry it. Department of Redundancy Department. Yeah, there you go. All these companies decided they weren't going to carry it. And in the pregame, because I started Ben After Dark at 7 p.m. Central Time, so we had an hour to just kind of talk, and I was kind of floating it out there. I'm like, is it right for these media companies to not carry a president's speech because they believe it's going to be misinformation without actually knowing what's going to be said? Even though we all kind of knew, but we didn't know, but we all knew. And I kind of, went back and forth with that with myself. Everybody was throwing comments out there, blah, 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 blah. And then we got to the speech. And it actually pissed me off, the speech did, because it was just so flagrant. It was designed to stoke fear. It was essentially a president getting down on his knees for 26 minutes and begging America to pass the SAVE Act, despite the fact that we all see through the bullshit, or the Save America Act, despite the fact that we all see through the bullshit there. And he brought up a bunch of misinformation. I went to go check out whitehouse.gov live on my streams when he said, go to whitehouse.gov and check this out. So I went and it said, sorry, whitehouse.gov is down right now. Too many people are requesting to access the site. So I did go this morning and nothing really caught my eye. And it was just a more nonsense surrounding election rigging. What's funny is that there's actually examples in what's posted of Donald Trump essentially confirming that Russia, I'm not implying collusion, but that Russia attempted to sway the 2020 election in favor of Donald Trump. That's in the reporting that he put on whitehouse.gov. It's not even up for debate what he was looking at. So that's what he throws up on the website, and I get out of it at this point, and I will admit I had developed a casual buzz. I see Alex Greenhair saying that that should be a regular segment. Maybe we'll do that once or twice a week. We'll see. But I had developed a casual buzz while I was watching it to mellow myself before I went into the speech. And I still came out of the speech super angry because I knew the exact type of person that he was speaking to, and I knew that they were going to fall for it. But allow me to put a little bit of faith in humanity here. I had to put the speech on Fox News because nobody else was carrying it. So I had Fox News on while I was doing my stream. So when he stopped speaking, we did about a half hour roughly after the fact, and all of it's available on YouTube if you want to go check it out after I wrap up. Please subscribe to my channels. I need 44 more to hit my goal. And we were breaking it down, and I kept Fox News on, but it was like kind of like it's muted. And to be full disclosure, I have Fox News on right now to prove a point. The speech ended, and instead of corroborating what he said, instead of doubling down, instead of talking about how important it was that the president got up there and was willing to say the things, the truth that Americans needed to hear, literally the speech ended. Sean Hannity was on, and it immediately went to talking about the war in Iran. There were bombing strikes last night during the speech, focusing on bridges surrounding certain critical infrastructure in Iran. This morning, every liberal network started their A block with how stupid that speech was. And Fox News, I have been watching it all morning in preparation for this show, not with the sound on because I value my brain cells, but just to see how they handled it. They have not brought up the speech once since it happened. And I think that sums up everything right there. And you guys know me, I'm big on deductive reasoning. I don't have inside sources here, but here's what happened. This was an entire speech looking backwards about one man baby upset with losing an election 6 years ago, at a time when housing, healthcare, childcare, elder care, and the basic necessities are absolutely debilitating for the average American right now. The idea that they are still looking backwards like that, and don't get me wrong, I do believe this is in the name of planting seeds to cause a ruckus in November. I think a lot of you think that it's in the name of canceling the election. I do not believe that. I believe it is in the name of sowing enough doubt that it will gum up the works of politics for the next 4 to 6 years, as all of the diehards will be screaming about election frogs. And for those of you that are new here, I can't say the word because I'll get muted on TikTok. Election frogs. They want the narrative now, so they're planting the seeds. But I think this president is uniquely unpopular. I think despite the fact that the Democratic Party is a trash-ass party, the Republican Party is less popular and is set for an absolutely debilitating loss in November. I think the internal polling is in, and these guys have no game plan to actually address the cost of living or do anything about the shortcomings of our economy and of this presidency. And so this is the strategy. This is the caravan, the immigrant caravan of 2018. The game plan is election frogs, election frogs, election frogs, and hopefully we can rally enough of our people to show up and vote for a presidency that is not addressing their material needs in any kind of perceivable way. That speech last night was infuriating. I can understand why it might instill fear, and even though I'm not a fearmonger, I will be installing fear in you later today. I have a guest response. Stand by. We'll get you on here in 1 second. But do not be afraid of that specific speech. Nothing about that speech should be putting fear in you because liberals are running it up the flagpole as like a look how embarrassing this is. And MAGA is so embarrassed by what took place that they're not willing to air it on their networks. Don't get me wrong, Breitbart, OAN, Newsmax, I'm sure they carried it. I'm talking about not to say that you should take any mainstream media seriously, but I mean, Fox News, who has a direct pipeline into all of our grandparents' veins there, is too embarrassed to play it, probably as a result of a $787 million lawsuit. I apologize, Double Junior. What's on your mind, man? Oh, hold on, wait, let me turn you up here. We don't have any volume. What's on your mind? Oh, you leave as soon as you're teacupping now? All right, well, we'll wait, see if he wants to say something there. Brian says, Ben, humor me. A president who is prone to sue for libel. I feel like, oh. So wait, what are you saying? You think he's going to sue for people that say it wasn't rigged? I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility. Can we file a suit for libel? Oh, I doubt it. I mean, honest to God, the guy is untouchable. All right, I'm gonna disconnect from you, Double Junior. If you want to come back, feel free. Um, I hear what you're saying. We sue. I don't know. I don't know if that's possible. John saying, Ben, he's making us like all the countries he rips. Agree on the Democrats' response. I'm now more convinced to vote DSA. We need systemic change. I'm actually going to a DSA thing tomorrow. It's like a northeastern part of the state type of thing, just to check it out. I was invited, and I figured, what the hell? What the hell else do I have to do? So I'm going to go see what they're all about there. Brambo says we need to amplify and message that the party in control says our elections are frogs. Um, they should be out there, out on their asses for being illegitimate. I agree. Kevin says I couldn't listen to the whole thing. I did it for the people. I wasn't happy about it either. Um, Annie says if you refuse to cover it or carry it, you shouldn't get a vote. And I mean get a vote on how horrible it was. Yeah, I agree with that sentiment. I feel like you have to put it on. I feel like you have to put it on. And then you just fact check it. You rip it to shreds. I don't like this idea. There are networks out there that are like, we're doing our best. We understand Trump's voice is triggering, so we're going to do our best so that you don't have to hear his voice. Okay, grow the fuck up. Like, we're all adults here. If you're 15 and you struggle with it, cool. Work on processing your emotions later. If you're 25 and you can't handle it, grow up. Like, you need to be able to hear this stuff. You can change the channel if you don't want to hear it, because I promise you, whatever bullshit MSNBC or CNN did say during the time that the Trump speech was on was probably irrelevant to your life too. So, like, the idea, like, oh, we can't do that. We need to cover the real news. Anyway, Israel has a right to defend itself. Like, you know what I mean? Like, let's stop acting like CNN and MSNBC and the rest of the mainstream are the paragons of great news coverage. They're better than whatever the hell Fox News is, but come on now. Herb says I wasn't much into politics until finding Ben's show. I grew up in an extremely rural red area, went to Grothman's town hall to stir the pot because he fails to respond to my emails. Those are my favorite kind of messages, Herb. Actually, if you don't mind, okay. I'm going to screenshot that on my iPad and insert all my TikTok people mocking me for having an iPad, despite the fact that they have one. But I love that kind of stuff, and I'll be honest, I'll block your name out, but I use that to market myself to sponsors. So I appreciate any compliments you guys give me there. There we go. Um, yeah, everybody's saying it. Great, get out of here. But so in any event, I appreciate that. Tom says, I feel like we need to tackle this, how people explain to people the earth is not flat. Show people the process, show them how counts are validated, and put concrete evidence into the airwaves. Who let another round earther into my chat? Thank you, Heels. Major boomer energy. Yeah, get out of here, Stevie. Um, but in any event, so don't be afraid of what he said. To me, that was the mark of desperation, more so than anything that you guys should be scared of. To me, that's the mark of a presidency that and by the way, Tom, I was joking about the round earther thing. I realized I just kind of moved on from that. I like your suggestion very much. Here's what's funny, Tom. Back in the days before I got fired for being too good at my job, after the first election that I was here for, which was actually Mandela Barnes and Ron Johnson, which it turns out that one was also not rigged. That one was good. Though that was a good election. Tammy Baldwin winning, I have a couple of questions about. Ron Johnson winning, Trump winning, those were good. But when Biden won and when Tammy Baldwin won, I feel like there might have been some impropriety there. Um, I had a gentleman, Larry, who I hope he figures out a way to find this show, but he ran the elections. He's taken a bit of a back seat in recent years, but he was running the elections in the Menasha area. And he came on my show. He came up, he was a fan of the show from day one. And so when I walked in, he heard my name, he introduced himself, and I said, why don't you come on the show tomorrow and why don't we talk about the system of checks and balances that we have here in Menasha to ensure that the vote is counted the right way? And he said, I love that idea. He comes on the program, we do like a 20-minute conversation about how you get a number, and that number is cross-referenced with the number when you feed the ballot into the machine, and here's all the measures in which it makes sure that in case you get the wrong number, that it's able to fact check itself and make sure that your vote is still counted, and here's the layers in which blah 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 blah. I don't think it's changed a single mind, because um when it comes down to brass tacks, there are people that refuse to accept that this guy that clearly has no ideas other than how to enrich himself could lose an election. And that's going to kind of lend itself into what I want to talk about for the second half of this hour. Tony Weed and Grothman are both useless. I agree. Everybody should send emails to Tony Weed telling him to respond to my emails and to come on this show. I'm not even an aggressive interviewer. Don't get me wrong, I'll allow you to tie yourself in knots and then sit there in silence while you guys all silently judge them. I did that to an older woman 2 days ago. like, like that's my interview style. But it's not like I'm here to embarrass you, but I would request that someone like Tony Weed come on the show and actually defend anything that this presidency is doing and why we should be excited about what's happening. So, and anybody who's newer, because all of my numbers across all of my streams are higher than normal. If you're not familiar with the show, we're based out of Northeast Wisconsin. The show's called Outside the Box. Um, and we discuss politics nationwide, obviously with a focus on Northeast Wisconsin. Tony Weed is a House of Representatives member, as is Glenn Grothman, that both represent the area, in my opinion, not in a particularly effective manner. And I think most people struggling with the cost of living here would probably agree with that sentiment. But Republicans seem a little iffy on coming on this show, and I'm willing to give anybody the benefit of the doubt, but there's quite a bit of fact-based evidence to back this up. By the way, Fox News is now on to alleged smuggling tunnels under El Paso in the name of not talking about Trump's speeches. You know, I need to watch this channel more often because I need to see what our grandparents, and I mean, honestly, I'm getting old, so even to this extent, our parents are watching. But my God, they're struggling the drugs. Uh, Recon says people that believe anything he said are absolutely complete morons, in my opinion. I just can't fathom how some of these people can't even think it's 1% true. 90% of what Trump says is complete lies. I mean, I'm with you, but my only pushback, and this is going back to the genesis of Outside the Box, is there were a lot of liberals that said Joe Biden is sharper than ever. People saying that Joe Biden, don't you know there's a pandemic? The reason we haven't seen him on TV in a year and a half is because there's a pandemic and we have to socially distance. And like nobody ever questioned that. Not nobody. A lot of Dems never questioned that. So it's not like Democrats are, this is how I describe it, Recon, is that if the sky turned purple, and that's a bad example because the smoke is changing the colors, the sky different colors these days. But if the sky were purple this morning as a result of something Donald Trump did, um, Fox News would come on the next day and be like, I don't know why people are panicking. The sky has always been purple. The fact that you guys think it wasn't purple kind of sounds like Trump derangement syndrome. And they'll keep saying that until you believe it. Democrats take an entirely different approach. The sky turns purple, and they're like, well, look, I understand the sky turned purple under our watch, but you have to take into account the way things were before we got here. And we are drafting a resolution in order to try and figure it out. So we'd appreciate it if you all would stop talking about the purple sky until a further date, because we got to make sure that we keep authoritarianism at bay. It's two different types of propaganda, but the outcome is the same. Shut up about the purple sky, because in all likelihood the sky is purple because a billionaire made a couple extra bucks doing something and they don't want to highlight that. So like that's kind of my attitude. And I say you agree. I appreciate that, because like that was always a big point of contention. One of my old school catchphrases was the only difference between Fox News and MSNBC is a lawsuit. That's the only difference. In my opinion. Uh Brian says even Democrats should be scared to come on your show. Any incumbent should be embarrassed about their performance. Well, that's what's funny, Brian, is people are very excited to come on this show when they're campaigning because people actually watch it, as opposed to another network. Once they're in, they really don't like to defend their inadequacies, which is frustrating. Rick on TikTok says Republicans are the Globetrotters and Democrats are the Washington Generals. I love that. That's better than my analogy. Did you think of that? Is that yours, or did you see that somewhere? I'm stealing it. Either way, I'm stealing it. Thank you, Rick. So everyone watching live today knows that I stole that, but as my audience grows, they're going to think I thought of it. And I apologize for that, but that's just the nature of media. But that's a fantastic example. But I appreciate that very much. Keto fan says, I was raised in Ecuador where politics back then wasn't as prevalent as it is now. It was very quiet. Keto, I don't know how long you've been in America, but it was the same thing here. Again, in my 20s, I was not political at all. Colonizer Ben, get out of here. I was not into politics. A lot of people weren't into politics. It wasn't as pervasive, or at least it wasn't viewed as being into politics. A lot of millennials were into Occupy Wall Street. They were into expecting change from higher ups, but it wasn't as pervasive. It wasn't as much in your life, or at least we weren't aware of it. Now I could go on a date with a woman, not talk politics once, and tell you with 90% certainty how they voted. Because now it feels like politics is very pervasive in every element of life. If you think that the new Christopher Nolan Odyssey movie is going to suck, I can tell that you're a Republican because nobody in their right mind thinks that movie is going to suck other than the people that are mad that Helen of Troy was cast as a black woman. And if you're mad about Helen of Troy being cast as a black woman, I can tell you with 100% certainty who you voted for. So, like, it's a that, like, people obviously crapped on movies um, before Trump was president, and it never crossed my mind that it was as a result of political reasons. In 2026, if a movie's not out yet and people are preemptively hating on it, it stands to reason there's probably a trans person in that movie. Ben, have you seen the new shame from the left? Apparently, you can't use the word establishment. No, I haven't, and I'm ignoring it. I'm not even playing that game. I'm not like that's the kind of stuff that the left or liberals, I don't know if you mean the colloquial left or the actual left, but that's the kind of stuff that oftentimes paints us into a corner. I'm going to continue using establishment. Up to 100 viewers on YouTube. I appreciate that, guys. Please consider subscribing to this channel. We go live 9 to 11 talking politics Central Time, Monday through Friday. If you like what you're hearing, subscribe and keep that rolling. But so all in all, this speech, waste of time, obvious lies, not breaking any news to most of you guys listening, and it was so bad that right-wing media is embarrassed to cover it. They are covering the rise in left-wing extremism that we're going to talk about in the 10 o'clock hour. But before we get there, I would like to stay focused on the Trump conversation here, because if you haven't seen the videos that I was posting to my socials and my YouTube channel this morning, we have seen a year's worth of corruption in the last 24 hours. And it's extra frustrating to me. And I almost wanted to call this episode of the show, What About Her Emails? Because there really is a knack. I would go crazy. I physically would not be able to do this job if I had to talk about the same scandals over and over again on this show. If I had to cling, and I'll bring you up in a second here. Well, actually, before I get rolling here, because I'm about to start a new topic. So if you want to say something different than what I'm about to get into, let's do that first. We've got somebody on TikTok. What's on your mind? Nope. All right, good talk. In any event, so I feel like if this were like a blue MAGA show, it would be my job to take this story about Trump selling access to his Truth Social posts and make that part of my show every day for the next 2 years until the next presidential election, so that everybody associates Donald Trump and the Trump crime family with corruption. Now, don't get me wrong. I am not here to convince you that that is above board. Although I will say, when you see people talking about that, every social media app has that ability to sell quicker access to your tweets. I would argue it's not an apples to apples comparison when it is the sitting president of the United States sitting on a ton of insider information with interest in trying to profit off of the information that he has. Every time they announce a peace deal with Iran and then engage in a bombing enterprise, typically you can see people either shorting oil prices or investing in some kind, just investing in the stock market in general when they're expecting a massive uptick. Every time one of those announcements happen, it is oftentimes coupled with a story about somebody who had access to that information and utilizing it. I am not saying that we should be ignoring it. I am not saying that it is not flagrantly corrupt what is happening. But what I am saying is that the left and liberals, and I'm not saying this is an insult, do not have the message discipline of right-wing media. Benghazi was a story for 2.5 years. Her emails were a story for 2.5 years. Hunter Biden was a story for 4 years. And they just keep hitting it over and over and over again. And I don't understand why their supporters are willing to accept that as news information. In the last 24 hours, how do you know I like Marvel? Bully the anti B Hilly. um, well, what gives you that indication? Um, but over the course of the last 24 hours, we have learned that Trump is selling early access to his Truth Social posts. We have learned that um, he has mentioned by name over the course of the last week 20 different companies, and those 20 companies have all seen stock increases, and all 20 of those companies Trump bought stock in before he ultimately mentioned them on TV and drove the prices up. And then we find out about the person running his teleprompter betting on Kalshi or fill in the blank of whichever one of those gambling markets they were utilizing, to the tune of $100,000 utilizing the information that he had. And the craziest part is that last one isn't even illegal because there are no laws regulating those gambling markets at this point, and there's no rules about using insider information to place bets on them. They are completely unregulated. And the only person facing repercussions is the guy that technically didn't break any rules, and that's the guy who runs the teleprompter. In 24 hours, we have learned about enough corruption that would last a MAGA news cycle 30 years. This would be 30 years of coverage. You want to know what Fox News is talking about right now? Maine Democratic Senate candidates court Plattner supporters. They are trying to stoke up the left versus centrist tension because, as I highlighted last week on my show, because Wisconsin media has clearly received their marching orders, Republicans' game plan right now is to wait for primaries to happen, and then anywhere where it's not a progressive candidate, try and depress progressive turnout from showing up. And as I've stated, if Hong loses in a fair and free election, I think anybody who identifies as left of center should show up and vote for whoever the candidate is. If I were doing this show in Michigan, I would not be saying that about Haley Stevens. So just to give you some idea of how I view the Wisconsin Democratic governor's race versus what's going on in Michigan, but not a single peep. But we will get 4 years of what about Hunter Biden? But not a peep of anything that took place. And I understand that I do a show saying that we are in a post-corruption version of America, and I do believe that. What's up, Putt Putt? But it doesn't change the reality that when a Democrat inevitably engages in corruption again, they're going to run it nonstop. It really does go to show you exactly how effective these bubbles are. Clean and Sober Nation, aka Susan, says I'm 7 years alcohol free. When Trump leaves office, I'm breaking out the O'Douls. I value that. But it's extra frustrating. I will putt putt. But like that's what kills me is that like, and again, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like liberal media wasn't pretending that Biden was in obvious decline the entire time he was in office. I will not pretend for a second that that wasn't the way that things were working. But it is egregious the way that they are talking about it now. Now we're on Democrats calling for Supreme Court term limits. Oh my God, the audacity. TJ's asking if I can say more about what's going on in Michigan. Haley Stevens is the epitome of Chuck Schumer backed, APEC funded, centrist liberalism cosplaying um, as a progressive, as somebody who's going to fight for the working class. And then Abdul El Sayed is a doctor. He's a wealthy man, which people always try to throw in progressives' face because when we say tax the rich, people assume we mean people making $400,000 a year and not people making $400 million a year. And I think Democrats intentionally conflate that message or do raise taxes on people making six figures to make it seem like leftists or some kind of radicals. But Haley Stevens is the epitome of status quo centrism. She has received over $7 million. Objectively, she should not be polling within a snowball's chance in hell of Abdul, but is because of millions of dollars being funneled in by APEC. And like very famously, 2 weeks ago, El Sayed was on CNN. He's very anti data center, he's very anti AI, and he has been loud about that. And they said, so you're telling me you haven't taken a single dollar from any AI corporations? And he responds by saying, I haven't taken a single dollar from any corporation. And you can tell that the interviewer was already on the path that they were going to go on, because any interviewer worth their salt would have pivoted there. But instead, they doubled down and they said, so you're saying that no Democrat should be taking money from any AI companies? Like, after he said he doesn't take it from any companies in general. And so he doubles down and says, I'm saying Democrats shouldn't be taking money from any corporations in general, because Haley Stevens is getting money from AI companies. She's getting money from APEC. She's getting money from data center groups. She is getting money from the sources that a large percentage of Democratic voters in the left are saying this is not what we want anymore. And in the state where Dearborn, Michigan is, where the Muslim population felt like they had been slighted by Kamala Harris and essentially cost her the election in that state. I'm not saying it was their fault, but I'm saying the fact that they didn't show up was essentially the difference relative to the percentage of that population that showed up for Joe Biden. Um, you would think Democrats would learn their lesson, but they'd rather double down, throw $100 million at the problem to win the primary, and then probably lose to the Republican candidate. And what they want to convince you is that Haley Stevens is the electability candidate. You know, Alyssa Slotkin only came within a half a point of beating Mike Rogers, so he's a pretty tough cookie. No, Alyssa Slotkin came within a half a point of beating Mike Rogers because she's also a centrist do-nothing shill and a CIA agent. So, like, there's a reason why these people are coming close to losing to Republicans, and it's not because they're too far to the left. It keeps happening, and they keep pretending like something different is happening. Brian says, just wait after the midterms, 24/7 Trump trials. Absolutely. And like, hopefully, as I am getting more aggressive in my new unfettered, unfiltered version of this show, I'm going to be much more aggressive getting people on the show. Rodriguez just suspended her campaign. Can somebody hit me with a source, please? Did that happen? Or even just a second person corroborating that? Carla is saying that Rodriguez suspended her campaign. Can somebody else please confirm that? Not that I don't trust Carla. I absolutely do. I just don't like running with something um, as an absolute fact. If you guys don't mind, I'm just gonna look this up really quickly and see if um today I'm suspending my campaign. Thank you to everyone who believed and showed up for this campaign. Let's keep fighting together. It's wild. Here's the deal. I ran through, we're pivoting off of the corruption. Live change, beauty of live radio. Um, we talked about the numbers yesterday. Actually, while I'm talking, I'm going to see if I can find the numbers just for specifics. Everybody was in the hundreds of thousands. I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, Kelda Royce was right around 200,000 cash on hand. Everybody else was between 350 and 400, or 350 and 400,000 cash on hand, and Sarah Rodriguez's campaign was at 34,000. The campaign manager absolutely screwed her. And as I stated when this information broke at the beginning of the week, I do not believe the scandal in and of itself was a rationale enough to drop out. But a lot of people who have run campaigns have stated on multiple times it's an embarrassing number to try and get things done with, even if you were running a more local race, let alone a statewide race. Um, Yeah, so yeah, cash on hand 34,990 compared to Barnes, Hong, Brennan, and Royce in that order. And I was wrong. It was Barnes at 200,000, not Royce. Barnes at 200,000, Hong at 410, Brennan at 359, Roy's at 406, Sarah Rodriguez was at 34,990, so just under $35,000. Not nearly enough money, and who in their right mind would be donating to that campaign going forward after they know how badly the finances were mismanaged? Cannot stress enough. I stated when it broke that she shouldn't drop out from the embarrassment. Obviously, the math not making sense is probably the main reason why. And part of me wonders now about consolidating the Sarah Rodriguez vote behind a non-Hong candidate, which will probably be a conversation on Monday because I'm going to need a little bit of time to assess the fallout from that. But just for some perspective, and for the record, this woman is a friend of mine. I'm not saying this in a derogatory fashion in any stretch of the imagination, so I don't want anyone to take it that way. But Kristen Dassler-Alfheim, state senator, has been on my show a handful of times before. Said, yes, 14 hours ago, what's the big deal in the Democratic primary, you ask? Tony Evers beat Trump enthusiast Tim Michels by only with only 51.2% of the votes in the last election. To clear that number, he needed Republicans to cross over and more than half of the independents. I responded to that on Facebook and said, independent does not imply moderate, though, which I think is what you're getting at here, and please correct me if I'm wrong. The only reason I'm a Dem and not an independent is in my home state, you can't vote in the primary if you're not affiliated with a party, and I promise I'm not a centrist. Bernie brought out independents more than Hillary did in Wisconsin. I believe the whole moderate approach is a red herring. To which she responded, I hear you, my friend. My fear is the short-sightedness of this election. We need to win and hold the majority through the 2030 census so the Republicans don't gerrymander us into irrelevancy for another decade. Decisions we make today will directly impact whether we control long-term. What we are desperate for is action that helps people's pocketbooks. Wisconsin is in this mess not because of moderate establishment Democrats that have been in office and haven't reached far enough, but because they didn't have a single vote. The Senate Dems authored 446 pieces of legislation on affordability, gun safety, prison reform, equality, you name it. This session, exactly 0 of them were brought to the floor for a vote. That's the power of the majority. It has the power to make the other side irrelevant. I don't begrudge people for wanting a more aggressive path. They have a right to expect more. Understanding where power lies and ensure we take and hold the majority is more important than having an aggressive gubernatorial candidate, especially if they can't win a second term. Now, I disagree vociferously with Kristen's attitude on the nature, not in that that centrist Dems have been gerrymandered out of relevance. People that listened to me back when I was on the radio know that I have said the only reason Wisconsin Democrats have escaped my ire the entire time I've been out here is because they have quite literally been stopped from ever doing anything. Like, the fact that they haven't been able to get positive legislation across has not been their fault. And I said, the second they have majorities and these things are not happening, I'm going to be having words with some people. But it kind of, by and large, is why I stopped bringing state reps on the show, because what were we expecting them to do with the way that things had been gerrymandered? But I would argue in 2026 and realistically for the last 10 years, the idea that centrism is the way forward, even in a purple state like Wisconsin, she's lived here longer than me. Far be it for the transplant to be the guy be like, I know better. But also, I know better. And I'm here to tell you right now, if you're under 40 years old, the idea that baby steps centrism in the status quo is going to be the way to pull us out of that is not going to be the way that people look at it. Not saying they wouldn't vote for a centrist, but I'm saying the idea that a leftist is somehow uniquely polarizing in 2026, I think that logic is dead in the water, personally. CKK says this sounds just like ChatGPT printout of Democratic Party line talking points. I mean, obviously, I disagree with what was said as well. I'm with you there on that. Like, and the beauty of it is the Michigan race, the El Sayed and Haley Stevens race, is a week before the Democratic primary. The primary in Michigan is August 4th. We're August 11th. So we'll see it a week before. Michigan's electorate is also purple. Michigan's electorate is also Midwest. And Michigan's leftist candidate is a Muslim. We know Democrats hate electing them. We saw it in New York. So, so if El Sayed can come away against the AIPAC funded Stevens, I have a feeling we're going to know what's going to happen here. And I believe, I can't prove this, and I'm going to do some sleuthing over the weekend. I believe there were centrist powers that be pushing Rodriguez out. And again, I'm not calling collusion here. I'm not calling for, I'm not saying that this is reminiscent of Biden 2020. What I am saying is that I told you guys yesterday the marching orders were sent out surrounding Hong. Everybody's kind of attacking her from the perspective that Republicans are doing their attack ads against Hong and Hong only. And the centrist Democrat talking point is that's in the name of bolstering Hong. And I'm of the belief that attacking Hong from the Republican Party is that they know she's the front runner. She's probably going to come out of the race, and she absolutely is the biggest threat to the Wisconsin GOP because progressive politics are popular politics. And so I fundamentally disagree, and I think this was an effort to get Sarah out of the race because $35,000 was not going to be enough money to do anything. And as I predicted, although not for the reasons that ended up bearing it fruit, Kelda Royce was on my show 10 days ago. And I said to her after the Wisconsin Muslim Alliance forum that Sarah Rodriguez and David Crowley, both of whom are no longer in the race, bailed on that hearing or that forum. I said to Kelda, I have a feeling that you might see a little bit of an uptick in your polling as a result of that because that matters to people. It matters to progressives, and young people are more engaged statistically than they've ever been in politics. So I'm not saying you have to pander or placate, but I'm saying showing up and being able to call wanton violence should be all right. Showing up with an actionable housing plan shouldn't be a huge ask. It should be the standard for entry in 2026. And so we'll see how this ultimately bears out. But I think the big three has just become, I mean, who else is left? Brennan is still in there. If Brennan drops out as well, we're going to be seeing a three-way race. And then it's just a matter of who can shake enough babies and kiss enough hands between now and then to come out on top. I have a feeling this might be a very close race into the final moments here. It was always kind of geared up for that, but now it's becoming abundantly clear. John says, you are right. Healthcare insurance, childcare expenses, racial economic realities, educational readiness, all these serious issues need change. We need massive change. Exactly. And while Democratic inactivity in Wisconsin can be explained away with gerrymandering and the fact that Republicans had borderline supermajorities in the Assembly and Senate led to a stagnation that has resulted in declining outcomes and a lot of the things that John mentioned there. Those things are declining nationwide, and it's not like the places where Democrats have control of everything, things are heading in a better direction. So the idea that centrism is going to end what the GOP is doing, I think has been borne out to be a false statement time and time again. And I don't know how many more times centrists need to learn this lesson before, or maybe they do know, and it's their obligation to obfuscate. I have no idea, but like Outside the Box was saying in 2023, January, that if Biden's line on the economy was Bidenomics is working and not corporations are gouging you and making your life a lot more expensive. And in order for me to be able to push back against that, I need a Congress that's going to be willing to tax the shit out of billionaires. Like, I said there's going to be a rude awakening for Democrats in November of 2024. And sure enough, here we are. I didn't anticipate October 2023 happening. That obviously didn't help matters either. But fundamentally, I act as the canary and in the coal mine for the Democratic Party. Continuing to bang this centrist drum in 2026 when it has been borne out. Centrists are 1 out of 3 against Donald Trump, and the one he pretended to be Bernie Sanders in the election. The other 2 times, 2 women ran as diehard centrists, lost, blame sexism. There comes a time when the evidence stacks up against you in a way that you have to acknowledge the reality of it. And left-wing politics are popular. You know what's crazy? Is when you take the left wing out of it and just present the policy information, Republicans like what leftists are about. They like the idea of moratoriums on data centers. They know corporations are fleecing them. They know healthcare is too expensive. And then centrists come out and say, look, we can't be leftists on this, otherwise everybody's going to run away. You know what they're talking about when they say that? The attitude towards gay people and trans. And as I often state, leftists value the LGBTQ community and all minority status, people of color, fill in the blank here, just as much as a centrist. The difference between a centrist and a progressive is we do not make it the focal point of campaigning. We talk about the 99%, which encapsulates all of those people, whereas liberals would rather be like, look at this specific population of people and how they're struggling. What can we do to help them? Don't get me wrong. There are populations of people that need more assistance, that need more help due to systemic equality that's been allowed to persist for 400 years. I'm not a jackass, but it doesn't change the fact that the white guy born with the privilege that comes with being a white guy is not, statistically speaking, also probably struggling. And so when you show up breaking people down into identity groups all the time and not talking about fiscal change, do you know how often I hear Francesca Hong talk about being the first Korean potential governor in Wisconsin? I've heard her say it. It's not a lot. It's not like it's the focal point of the campaign. It's just like, oh, wouldn't it be nice to have the first Korean governor in Wisconsin history? Also, here's 13 ways in the process in which I would do so to make your life better and more affordable here in Wisconsin. And here's what I'm going to do to make you feel safe about ICE. And here's what I'm going to do about your housing programs. Have these ideas in place, and then may the best ideas win. I don't give a crap. But the idea that leftism is uniquely unpopular in Wisconsin. I've said this before on the digital show. Purple state does not mean you have to be a moderate to win. Again, I'm an independent. I'm not a moderate. The idea that you have to be a moderate to win a purple state, I think, is old school thinking that is not backed up in reality anymore. A purple state means you got a bunch of people that want to tax the shit out of the rich and a bunch of people that are super excited about a mass virgin army unaliving people in the streets. Ali says true equality is equality for everyone. Exactly. Exactly. My dad's 70 years old collecting Social Security and he's still working for a living to make sure that he can make ends meet. He's a white guy. Well, we're Greek, technically, not white, but I would argue in 2026, Greeks are white now. You're going to sit there and say, oh, that guy clearly doesn't need a leg up. Like, what are we talking about here? Like, we all have people in our lives that are living that way. It's it's not out of the realm of possibility for a candidate to show up and say, I hear that, and I hear that a black man that age has it even harder than Ben's dad does. And I hear that too. Ram Tony says that on TikTok. Me too. I'm 68. Exactly. Exactly. I mean, hell, depending on where this career takes me, granted, this isn't real work. I'll do this till I die or can't talk anymore. But um I think a lot of people, and people my age, view that as an inevitability, not a possibility. We view it as an inevitability. Equality doesn't exist, Fair Bearded says. Absolutely, it doesn't exist. But as a society, the gross inequality that exists is a choice. That's what I'm saying. Perfect equality is never going to be a thing. Again, I struggle with the idea of the transgender conversation in sports leagues. I'm not saying my mind is unchangeable. I'm saying I would need to see some pretty convincing data to have a real conversation about it. And I want trans people to feel as comfortable as possible in every element of their lives. And I recognize that it's not going to be perfect. Either we're going to include it, and there will be moments where I understand why cisgender athletes are frustrated by a situation, or we exclude, and then we have an exclusionary environment that I would prefer to avoid. Like, neither one of those situations is perfect. There's a question about which one is more messy and which one is less messy. I am not sitting here saying everybody should be born with exactly fair balance. I would love to try and find a way to get that, but I am saying having record numbers of people in their 60s and 70s returning to work because the cost of living is going too high, having record numbers of people in their 20s and 30s still living at home because the cost of housing is too high, having record numbers of people going bankrupt because medical debt is too high, while every other industrialized nation has figured out how to avoid bankruptcies as a result of healthcare debt. All of these things happening in America are policy choices. And there are policy choices that are happening when Democrats are in control, and there are policy choices that are happening when Republicans are in control. And then when enough people stand up with one voice and say it's about goddamn time that we see a party show up and actually mean business to push back against the status quo, both parties coalesce and decide to target that person as the true threat to American democracy. Scandals notwithstanding, you watched that happen with Plattner. You watched it happen with Mamdani. You sure as shit watched it happen with Bernie 3 elections in a row. You're going to watch it happen with Hong. You're going to watch it happen with El Sayed. You're going to watch it happen with Kiros. You're going to watch it happen with What's Her Face in Seattle. You're going to watch it happen everywhere. I'm saying I don't think it's borne out in reality. And I think it's very easily disprovable based on the last 30 years of our lives. I did shave. People have been telling me they liked the bearded look, but I mean, I don't know. I'm going to go back and forth. I'm sorry I didn't read a lot of your comments on any of these things. I wasn't ignoring you guys, but I was getting on a roll there. I did have a lunch with a sponsor yesterday, so I cleaned up. By the way, it's all systems go. Not going to tell you guys yet, but we got a sponsor and outside the box. Boom! 1 down, 7 to go. Anybody who knows a company looking for advertising, let me know. Hal says, I don't know. He was taken down yesterday for a while. Maybe it's his clone. Oh, you're talking about me? Yeah, right. Hey, what's Elf saying? 14% of all graduates spend at least 1 year homeless in 4 years. 14% of all graduates. Wow. I'm saying these are all policy choices. And that's in California. That's where Elf's listening to us. California is a centrist liberal bastion. Why aren't things a utopia in California then, if that's the case? Why don't they have Medicare for all yet? Why is the homeless problem never seemed to get addressed in a meaningful way? It's because MAGA and Blue MAGA aren't too far off. That's all I'm saying. Justin says, I always imagine we get a candidate who toes the line and gets elected, but once they're in, they go full figurative Rambo and gets shit done. Like, that is I have said this for a while now. Project 2025 was common knowledge, and up until Trump won, they all acted like, I don't know why you guys are saying Project 2025 is a game plan. Progressives, on the other hand, will be like, I think we should have Nuremberg trials for all the ICE agents. Like, Justin's right to a certain extent. I almost wish progressives would run on, like, let's try and figure out the right way to do this. And the second they get into office, Nuremberg everybody. And like, I kind of like that idea. I don't know if it would work, because then like people would be like, oh, he's not really leftist enough. And then you can't come out and say it, because that does away with it. And TJ, I'm not saying trans lives don't matter, like, but you're kind of misrepresenting what I'm saying. It's more so like I'm saying trans frustration and cis frustration, because I'm not saying trans people don't get to exist. I'm saying there are inequities there that I think I'd be a fool if I didn't acknowledge that they existed, which I went into a diatribe last week, and I'm not making this a transgender people playing sports show again. That's not what I like to do. But I've told the story before as a former volleyball player about exactly what goes into that. And I have logic behind why I think this way, not stemming from a place of hate or bigotry, but being able to understand why people feel a certain way. And I cannot stress enough, I would never vote based on that. I would be voting based on the things that impact society. That's my attitude towards that. Ethan says, establishment says, oh, you can't vote for that person. They will not beat the other guy. And people just take their word for it. If ranked choice voting happened, the establishment position would get cooked. 1,000%. That's why they try and block it. You know what's funny, Ethan? I don't know if you read The Recombobulation Area by Dan Schaefer. It's an independent Substack that he puts together. I use it. You guys should too as well. He's great. He'll be on the show soon enough. He did a ranked choice voting experiment before David Crowley had dropped out. And I did mention this either yesterday or 2 days ago, and I saw the demographic breakdown. Not nearly enough black people included in the subset. So take it with a grain of salt. But it didn't even have to go to the second round. Francesca Hong just got 60% of the vote. Like, I hear what you're saying, but like, it didn't even need the ranked choice voting for the thing to happen. It just, that's what the popular thing is. And part of me wonders if that's not why you see the calls to coalesce around one centrist candidate start to grow a little bit louder here, because it looks like she is going to come out on top. And then, God forbid, we might have to accidentally do like transcendent change rather than incremental change. Mickey says, I'm currently watching an elderly man dig through gas station garbage cans looking for aluminum cans in Wausau. Word on Twitter, Kristen says, is that Dems are pushing Crowley to get back in the race. Do you see the machinations? Like, because Hong is popular. Again, I'm just saying it's because she's popular. Like, no one can just accept, yeah, these people are dropping out, but we very clearly have a strong candidate that encourages people to show up. Again, I was at an event in Manitowoc 2 weeks ago. There were over 70, 80 people there. And it was just a small little bar in Manitowoc, a giant Red Sea, and dozens of people showed up for a Hong event in Manitowoc. Like, it should stand out to people that there is such a concerted effort to not have to vote for her. Like, that should be a thing that people notice and be like, why don't you want this person that much? Like, I can't stress enough, I am not a defund the police leftist. And yet, the only time Democrats beat Trump is when defund the police was at its loudest. Waka waka. Not my opinion, it's what happened. I'm not saying that's a viable strategy to run on. I'm saying the idea that she said 6 years ago to defund the police, that was popular policy that was winning elections. And not just at the top of the ticket, all over the ticket. So someone's going to need to explain to me why we're ushering people like, and not to be a dick, I've never met, well, I have met David Crowley in passing. We do not, if he met me again, he wouldn't remember the last time we talked, right? It's one of those kind of conversations. They meet hundreds, if not thousands of people. I wouldn't take it personally. Was he ever polling at more than 4%? Why not just let the popular person win? Like, I don't get why. It's like, hey, guy that barely showed up. It just reeks of put Kamala at the top of the ticket, even though she never pulled higher than 1% in the 2020 primary. Like, why? What about this candidate is just so atrocious that even though it's the only thing ginning up real excitement around the state, we got to find a way to circumvent this? It's mind blowing to me. Ethan says FDR was a class traitor to the wealthy. FDR is why I won't rule out Pritzker as a presidential candidate, even though he's a billionaire. For the same reason. I don't trust him still, but I also know that FDR was that. So I feel that. Um, Herb, I'll have to look at Discord later. He says he put a picture up of the right turning a sawtooth dial clockwise, and the Dems can't turn it back on it because it's a ratchet. Old Lib says, Ethan, I've been skeptical about ranked choice voting. This boomer is coming around. Ethan says, exactly. People feel afraid to vote for what they want because they are just voting to block the guy they don't want. Um, Wait, what's Chewy's, Cassandra? What happened to Chewy's? She needs better shirt designs, says CKK Fran, that is. CKK says Fran's merch manufacturer is a union print shop. Vote union, vote for Fran. I have to believe every Democrat in Wisconsin is a union vote. I will say that. El Sayed hits Stevens for her pro-Israel aid vote because the only demographic that's still pro our allies in the Middle East is 60-year-olds and over that watch Fox News. So apparently that's a negative. And he's Muslim. But yeah, so I'll be real. The last 45 minutes have been entirely off the cuff. I didn't anticipate this. I didn't plan this to be the conversation. We're going to have to see where it goes from there. I feel a couple of people sending me private messages through. Okay, we're all good there, I think. What's Jamie saying here? Okay, she just sent me a source on that. And I apologize, Facebook people. I've been exceptionally bad at being on the live today. Justin, by the way, is coming over on Monday to help me with technology. So hopefully we'll have all you guys together starting Tuesday morning. Let me just see a couple of the comments here. I'm sure they're old as shit at this point and probably have nothing to do with what I was saying at this point. Um, Allison asking if I was impressed with Trump's speech. I hope that's a joke 'cause I'm going to laugh at it. Jamie messaging about her ending her campaign. How soon before we learn about all the great things in store for you and your viewers? Soon enough. September 1 is when the new outside the box look is going to be official. I can probably announce some things before then, but just for reasons that if you really think about it between the lines, I can't bring up exactly what's changing right now because there are other business entities that I can't risk hearing what I'm saying right now. Brian says, even if Hong wins, what the hell can she get done if both parties hate her positions and policies? What it does, Brian, is open people's eyes to the rigging of the game. What Hong's win in Wisconsin does is that puts to bed the conversation that Mamdani can only win in deep blue places, and that progressive politics are not politics are not popular in the Midwest or nationwide. And anybody who works to prevent those kind of politics going forward will be perceived as against the working class. You know what my perfect political spectrum is that the Democratic Party still exists, but they represent the right. Because what MAGA is absolute objective nonsense. And anybody that can't see that in 2026 doesn't want to see it. The Democrats represent Reagan era politics, and there is no left wing of the party. I believe that the DSA will become stronger over the course of the next decade and will represent an actual left. And if you are in favor of Reagan era politics where people are nice to minorities, you'll vote Democrat. And if you are progressive, if you are in favor of taxing oligarchs, corporations, and the ultra wealthy and using that to fund a robust social safety net, you will vote whatever the leftist is, whether it's DSA or a new party that just kind of emerges as a leftist beacon. That to me is the best that we can ask for right now. And so if Hong were to win and the Democrats took majorities and it still didn't happen, I feel like we would have some issues within the party going forward, and we would know what we're up against. Hello, Neon Legends. Welcome to the chat. If you haven't subscribed already, please do. We're here 9 to 11. Any new people in the chat today, please click the subscribe button. Trying to get to 731 before July 22nd. Everybody who clicks subscribe definitely helps out quite a bit. Thank you, Carla, for saying the same thing on the TikTok. Kristen says, word on Twitter is that Dems are pushing Crowley to get back in. They keep trying to lose, is what she followed that up with. I agree. They would rather push someone, and let's be real. Like, I'll take it there because I'm not scared to get into race politics. They want Crowley in because young black people are progressive and would vote for Hong, but there is an identity element, and I'm not willing to chastise black people for feeling that way because for so much of history, they haven't been able to relate from a racial component to candidates. So when Obama tells a group of black people to vote a certain way, and it's a way that I would prefer they not vote, while it pisses me off, and I know the games they're playing and they're pulling that bullshit in Michigan, I get it. I get it, and I don't want to say that it's not stupidity. It's a cultural difference that I cannot relate to. Because even though I don't have a bunch of obvious examples of Greek people in areas of prominence, when you look at me, most people in politics look like me. And so they want David Crowley back in there because that will further break up a vote that I believe, at least from a younger generation, would probably trend more progressive, and especially from an older generation. No group is a monolith, but older black voters, for some reason, and like Cynthia has always pushed back against that. And Cynthia, if you can hear me, I got to teach you how to be able to chime in on this on YouTube because people miss your voice and we'd like to have you on. And this would be a great conversation for you to be taking part in. Um, but a lot of the older black generation, especially from Pittsburgh, they were all this way. Like the Black Panthers and the civil rights movement, as I've established multiple times over, had heavy progressive leanings, heavy socialist leanings, or at least social democracy leanings. And they aged into a much more centrist, capitalist, blue MAGA mindset. And I don't know how that happened, but it's definitely something that took place over the course of the last 60 years that I find fascinating. But then once you get into the minority populations that are my age, it tends to start to even out again, and you find a lot more people wired like I am. Um, what kind of music do I like to listen to? Just about anything other than country. Message me off the air. Trees are cool. If you have an idea, I'd definitely be up for something. Let me know. Um, but I appreciate you. Justin says Cynthia is awesome. Exactly. And Cynthia always uses code names on everything. So I don't want to out her because I know she has a couple of channels and has popped on here, but I'd like to get her voice back on the show. Because I think she added a lot. There's a couple people. I miss Jerry from Appleton. You know what I mean? There's a bunch of callers that I miss. Ben called for the first time yesterday during Ben After Dark to say that he doesn't believe there was election frogs. So that's where I'm at right now. Gangster rap's good. I love rap music. Rap music's probably my favorite kind of music. Results in you growing up being a very confused young man in your teens, but you figure it out. Um, Everybody in the Tube of You chat, please let Trees Are Cool know what kind of music taste you has. She has an idea for a sponsor. So anybody over on the TikTok, if you can throw some ideas in there, that would be great as well. Thank you very much. Phil, why does that sound incorrect? Um, the reason that it looks like old radicals age into centrists is because the actual radicals died or went to prison. Then they hang around, went back to their normal lives. That tracks. That tracks. I'm anticipating. I have a segment planned today about how Marco Rubio, J.D. Vance, Tom Homan, they're all essentially running around telling everyone that they're putting money together to be able to fight communists domestically. Um, and I have the worst kind of feeling shows like this, as they get bigger, are going to end up getting targeted. But I don't know if I'm gonna have time to get into that in an in-depth fashion. I barely even touched on the Trump fraud that I was intending to get into either. Betsy's been on a couple times, and as I said, Larry, Cynthia has actually chimed in. I know her code names, but I promised that I would never dox her. She needs to create like multiple shell accounts and then use her voice through the shell accounts is the way that I would like to bring her on. And please do, Justin. Send me any kind of music. I'm happy to listen to it when I get some time. It's going to be a long month until we get to this primary. I have a feeling. I just hope there's no obvious shitbaggery because, again, I'm watching right-wing media outlets try and play the center and the left against one another, and I call them out. I say it's cute you guys are trying to take my shtick and use it for negative purposes. Like I don't ever do it to drive a wedge in the Democratic Party. I do it to highlight to people what people my age are going through, what should be popular politics, and if you truly are afraid of what Trump, MAGA, and Republicans represent, listening to this show is probably a good barometer for how people are feeling. And you can call that conceited. You can say, what does one guy doing a show in Northeast Wisconsin know? I'd argue I have a track record of being pretty accurate with a lot of the stuff that I've predicted over the course of the last 4 years. And as long as a centrist wins on the up and up, far be it for me. Far be it for me to I would vote. I would vote for Kelda. I'd vote for Crowley. I'd vote for Barnes if they came out of the primary in a traditional election. If you notice some 2020 shit going down, I'm gonna get pissed. And like, I do not want to be responsible for suppressing turnout against a very beatable Tom Tiffany. But like, if the Democratic Party wants people like me to play ball, then you got to play fair and just let the chips fall where they may. And whatever happens, happens. But what do you mean, give us the real news, Selena? What was I doing before? I feel like I'm doing it the right way. One doesn't equal another, Annie B says. When you say Trump, Republican, MAGA, they are not all the same. I agree. I absolutely agree. I'd still argue all versions of Republican politics are outdated. Outside of some of the verbiage, not the policy. As we went into yesterday, Ron Johnson ran on reducing debts and then passed a massive tax cut for billionaires and then says we have to cut SNAP benefits. I said I would reduce debts and deficits. That shit has to go. Like that's not MAGA, that's just old school Republican, but I feel like that logic no longer is relevant. Random user says both sides are the same thing. It doesn't involve you and me. Well, here's the thing, user. Both like the both sides of the same thing uh, concept only applies to a certain extent. Because eventually, when I say both sides are the same thing, and then an actual progressive shows up, and then both sides attack that progressive as a socialist or as a communist, and then people turn around and say, yeah, we can't vote for them. Well, it's like, no, you're listening to what the duopoly is telling you when one person is standing up trying to say, actually, the status quo has been fucking you over for quite a long period of time here, and I'm here to represent something different. When Democrats and Republicans go back and look at how many times Andrew Cuomo ended up on Fox News once he lost the primary and rejoined the race as an independent. Why? Because even though Andrew Cuomo is a Democrat, Fox News understands that as the Republican channel, having a Democrat in power is much better than having a progressive because the progressive will actually do shit. And what has Mamdani won since he got into the office? Actually done shit. So, like, yes, both parties suck. I am here telling you that there are candidates that are out there right now that are operating from outside of that system, at least on paper. Once they get into power, if they screw around once they get in, I promise this will be the last place that they will be able to view as a safe space. But assuming they govern the way they campaign, there are candidates out there that mean business, that are not taking corporate dollars, that are intending to stand up against corporate greed. And then when they continue voting against this kind of shit, or for this shit, but the Democrats and Republicans vote in unison to stop it, it's going to be contingent on the voting population to recognize, okay, healthcare sucks in this country. I realize I spent my entire life being told socialism is a bad term, but it looks like the only people that are actually voting to make this shit less expensive for me are the people that have socialist in their title. Should I break free from 60 years of propaganda and actually vote for somebody outside of the two-party system, or should I continue voting for one of the two halves of a coin that has been screwing me over for the last 45 years? Are people going to be able to make that jump? I think we can do it, but I don't know. I don't know. Stewart says, where on earth do you think Mondo is done shit? No free stores, no free bus rides, no taxing the rich. He's been in office for 6 months, my man. He'll get there. He's doing a ton of positive things right now that, again, as a mayor, he can only do so much, but they got a blue MAGA governor that stands in his way. So as he wins incrementally, you will see the tides shift. It's the same thing about the question of what if Francesca Hong wins, but then a lot of centrist Dems and Republicans vote against what she's doing. As long as what she's doing is perceived as popular in a time when cost of living is through the roof, that will be a net good thing. Mark my words, Mamdani's entire 4 years is going to be a masterclass in how to win an election and then actually achieve things. And I think we should all be excited by it. At least that's my attitude. That's my 2 cents on the matter. I should have been sharing these more often. But if anybody wants to tell me I'm a dickhead, you can you can take this and you can jump in the stream. Stuart, if you want to get your thoughts heard, you're more than welcome. Not in a contentious way. I don't want to fight with you. If you want to talk about this, request to be a guest. I'd be happy to bring you on, and you can share your thoughts if you think I'm wrong. More than happy to allow that to happen. I have talk radio roots. I was doing talk radio until a month ago. I enjoy random people calling the show and sharing things. We had a couple truthers call the show this week. That's fine. That's why I call people round earthers now. I've evolved. Neon Legend says I woke up in a new Bugatti. Congratulations on all your success. Herb says if Fran wins and gets stymied, she needs to climb a tall tower and yell that she's being held back from helping the people. Exactly. Exactly. We can all sit here and shit on Donald Trump as much as we want, and I'm happy to do that. But even when his policies aren't popular, and then his own people vote against it, he gets them kicked out of office and gets them replaced with people that will vote for the shit that he wants to vote for. Where was Biden's effort in doing that? Had Biden done that, they'd be like, that's not the decorum that a president's supposed to exhibit. Fuck that, tax the rich. And if you don't want to tax the rich, get the hell out of the way, and we're going to find somebody who does. That's my humble opinion. Now I feel that. I feel what you're saying, Legends. Ben, when are open office hours again for next week? What do you mean by that? Oh, no, so actually the office hours is for the paid subscribers on the Minocqua Brewing Company Substack. That's a thing I do for Kirk over on his thing. But if you're not paying for the Substack, it's not open, I guess is my point. I don't know if it's $8 a month. I haven't actually looked into the subscription fee, but that's through Minocqua. But that's 1 to 1:30 Central Time on Tuesdays. I do that. specifically for, and I basically I write an article for the Substack, and then I break down what the article was about. And oftentimes it's an amalgamation of things that we talk about on this show, but in a hyper focused way. Um, Sensei says, bro, decorum is a sign of privilege when millions of Americans are suffering and unaliving prematurely. Exactly. Exactly, dude. Exactly. That's my attitude as well. But that's always what they lean on. I joined a TikTok live last week where they were trying to convince me that Biden did all he could to help Palestine. And they were like, what did you expect him to do? He had to go through Congress. And I was like, just to be clear, when Donald Trump and J.D. Vance announced that they were pulling funding from Ukraine, did they go through Congress to do that, or did they just do it? They said, well, they just did it. And I went, okay. And like I just let the silence hang, and they were like, but that's against the rules. And I said, and progressive voters are tired of hearing that from Democrats. Clearly the rules are made up and you use them as an excuse to not do the popular things. I'm here to tell you we don't care about the rules. What's up, Ram Tony? I don't know if it was an accident or if you wanted to talk, but the floor is yours if you want it. What's on your mind? Was this a butt dial?
Yes.
Oh, good. I'll get you off. No worries, bud. Um, but yeah, I feel that. Dude, I'm wrapped up all this weekend, CKK. I don't know if it's fun to the layman, but I've become much more community involved in my new independent stance just to kind of get the word out there about the show. But I've got an all-day event Saturday, and then I've got some fun shit planned for Sunday, actually. Um, we'll see where it ultimately ends up going, though. Jen says the Dems in Maine are protecting our politician, including our governor, saying they've tried their hardest to get ICE out, not flying. Community members are saying they've been ignored for months. I do wonder what would be happening in Maine right now after another pew-pewing if Graham were still in the race, and how different it would be and what the messaging would be on the national networks. Personally. But so, yeah, I'm sure you don't have any leaders. And again, Democrats take for granted that people just fall in line because again, MAGA will fall in line. Um, Dems to a certain extent will fall in line. Progressives won't. Progressives won't. I was so excited. I'm glad I moved away. I know Allie probably voted for him, but hold that against her on TikTok. But I moved away 2 months before the election. But I was so excited to vote for John Fetterman to be in the Senate. I thought he was going to be transcendent. I thought he was going to bring about all this change that we've been hoping and waiting for. And he's the biggest piece of shit on the planet. And he's like, if people aren't careful, I'm going to leave the Democratic Party. Oh no. Oh, you didn't vote for him? You voted for Dr. Oz? Supported him. Okay. I feel that. I'm joking. She didn't vote for Dr. Oz. I just like jerking her around. Um, no, I get that. I get that. Um, yeah, if you're thinking about becoming a paid subscriber to things, I would like to announce that I will be opening paid subscribers for YouTube in the very near future for anybody that's willing to support an independent media person as we continue growing here. But so, oh, now California counties are facing a flood of sexual abuse lawsuits. Still not a single word about Trump's speech. I've been talking to you guys for an hour and 43 minutes. I've had Fox News on mute in front of me the entire time. Not a single word that they carried the president's speech. They were the only channel that chose to carry it, and they have not said a single word about it. So anybody who has been agonizing or nervous or worried about the speech, please understand that Fox News isn't taking it seriously, and to not let it ruin your weekend or to carry that with you. Bryce voted for him. You were in your anti-vote anarchist era. Well, let Bryce know he's a failure. Then Old Lib says the stroke messed him up. Maybe. I'm always afraid to say that because I don't have like the medical evidence to back it up. And even though he's a piece of shit, I don't like mocking people for medical things. I try really hard. I don't do it well. Sometimes I call him Tiny Tom Tiffany, you know what I mean? But like I try really hard to mock people exclusively based on their political beliefs because I really try to make this a show about consistency in your beliefs. So like if I mock someone for being ugly, then I can't get mad at someone who makes fun of me for how I look or one of you for how you look because I make fun of people all the time. You know what I mean? By the way, this is how we're going to end because for those of you that are newer to the show, I really don't ever like ending on a Friday on a high note. So why don't we drag it down? Um, I talked about this a little bit last night, but for those of you that weren't taking part in Ben After Dark, as I kind of intimated, there are people in the Republican Party right now, Marco Rubio, J.D. Vance, Tom Hogan, all coming out and identifying leftists, liberals, communists, and socialists as domestic threats. I want to say a different T word, but TikTok will ding me for it, so I can't say it. They're labeling them as domestic threats, and they're starting to squirrel away some money to be able to push back against these domestic threats that Americans are facing. As you guys know, as I just held up my anti-flock thing here, I've been speaking out against with a number of people in the community as well against surveillance and the flock company and the entire industry writ large in terms of the threats that it poses to our safety, security, and the Fourth Amendment. And we oftentimes will use the slippery slope method, highlighting that the terrorist term, the threat term, the criminal term can be reappropriated to essentially describe any population of people you want it to. You want it to describe people not wearing masks during COVID. You want it to describe people that support what Luigi did. You want it to use it to describe people that want to tax the rich. That's fine. And oftentimes the pro flock advocates, the 7 of them that live in this city, would be like, I think you're a bit of a conspiracy theorist. I don't think people are going to change the definition of what a terrorist is or a criminal or an activist or whatever it is. Insert flock CEO. He calls DFlock, which is a project that users map flock cameras, a terrorist organization, which we have one of those here in the Fox Valley. He says, unfortunately, there is a terrorist organization like DFlock whose primary motivation is chaos. They are closer to Antifa than they are anything else. So look at that. If you're anti being surveilled because you're worried about being labeled as a threat inappropriately, you have now just been labeled as a threat inappropriately. It's almost like a snake eating its own tail or something like that. And that's not hypothetical. That's coming from the CEO himself, as the current administration is labeling 35% of the country as threats, as domestic threats. And moreover, and I know my TikTok chat's probably going to quasi roll their eyes at this, but if you guys didn't know this, I've been shadow banned on TikTok. And it's because I'm too good at the job, much like the same reason as to what took place in radio. Yo, I jumped up so many subscribers today. I absolutely love you guys. We need 28 more, and I'm at, or no, 38 more, and I've hit my goal. I love you guys. You're all great. Anybody who's here who hasn't clicked the subscribe button, please continue doing so. I post a short every day on my Tube of You page, and I get 1,100 views, 1,700 views, 1,100 views, 546, 500, 928. I posted one that was the call to action to show up and speak out against flock cameras, and I got 64 views on that video because I put the words deflock. I named the video deflock the right way. Meaning, I didn't go into this in the video. There are people all over the nation that are chopping these things down, that are shining a little green light in it to break it, that are doing all the things, that are covering them in bags themselves, that are covering up the frames, they're doing whatever they can. I did a video that said, instead of letting it get to that point, how about we just nip it in the bud and make it so those cameras don't even exist anymore? And I made a video calling for people to show up to that meeting, and it got suppressed. Clear as day, it got suppressed. And you can go to my Tube of View page, go into my shorts, and you can see it right there. It's a bright yellow thing. 60 views. It's irrelevant to listen to now. The meeting was Wednesday. It's not like anything would change now if you went and listened to it, but it's the principle. Then the CEO of that company wants to come out and say, you're all terrorists. Violated Elf says Palantir got deflocked.com shut down this week. Exactly. People power is working. I'm not saying to do the vandalism stuff. I'm saying get out in front of it and make sure your elected officials know that there will be electoral consequences for not listening to the public. I stated it yesterday. I had two advocates on with me. There was a changing of the guard. You could feel it in the room that, like, there was unease. This probably comes as a shock to none of you. I make direct fucking eye contact with everybody when I'm doing my speeches. Make sure I do like they teach you in high school. Like, you never want to look at one person, and you want to make everybody feel like they're felt. Carla's saying deflock.org is still up. Good stuff. And I made eye contact with everybody, and I could tell they were uncomfortable. And I still haven't posted. I gotta post that shit. I'll do it today. I apologize. I'm very far back in the chat, so I'm struggling to realize what you guys are talking about here, but it's all good. If you are using the slang term commonly applied to flock, automated license plate reader, ALPR cameras, the best synonym is deactivate, disable, turn off, disconnect. Good to know. Ethan says, almost like we are too reliant on a few tech platforms that get to control what gets shared on their platforms, and there aren't actually free platforms. 1,000%. 1,000%. And like, that's what's frustrating, because I said to you guys, part of my goal, by the end of July, assuming YouTube gets done with my background check, I'm going to be able to monetize YouTube and take monthly subscription fees from you guys. And my goal is to, get a couple hundred people to do it and be able to just live off of people that appreciate the work that I am doing. And I was like, then I'd be truly independent. But realistically, I'm one slip up away of my words from YouTube saying, I'm taking your whole channel away from you. Good luck, Mother Hubbard. And it's because I set the almighty seeing eye. Huh. Huh. I can't say what I just read. You'll be telling your grandchildren one day you were part of the movement to take back the country. Hopefully. Hopefully. You know what's funny is back in August of 24, I had somebody accuse me of doing voter fraud because I still had a Pennsylvania license. And so, if I remember correctly, the episodes are still up on Spotify. Search Outside the Box with Ben Cominos. We'll eventually get these also uploaded. A bunch of you are asking for audio only. Those calls are not unheard, I promise. But I think it was August 14th, 2024. If you go back and listen to it, it starts out with Jonathan Krause doing the episode. And I was pretending like I was calling from jail with my one free phone call. And then Trump won and shit started hitting the fan. And I had to make disclaimers and be like, just so we're all on the same page. If I ever do another episode and I'm being arrested on the air, that's real. I'm never going to do that joke a second time. So we'll see. Justin says if Kalinsky's still up, I'll be fine. No, I hear that. I hear that. Yeah, he's definitely out there more. But here's the thing. He also, I don't want to toot my own horn. His audience is a billion times bigger than me. I take a more educated approach to it. Like he's more antagonistic. Don't get me wrong, I don't mind his approach. But a lot of his content is he brings up an article or a video, he makes you watch the video for 4 minutes, then he talks about it for 7 minutes, and he's on to the next one there. Whereas I kind of like, it's more of a I feel very conceited saying it this way, but it's just like I try and put my thoughts out there to give people a different way to think about what's going on in society or reaffirm a way that you're looking at it. And I welcome other people to share their opinions. And hopefully, as people get more comfortable with the new format of the show, that'll happen more often. But that's at least my interpretation on matters. Wait, what was your email, Ethan? Oh, about the tech companies. Yeah, I feel that. Carla's saying there's an effort to campaign to get Crowley into the race and get Evers to endorse him. Guys, I'm telling you, we're watching it happen in front of our faces, and I'm not going to be quiet about it. And I feel like some of you are going to hate me for that as it gets closer, but I swear to Christ, if they try and blue mag us again, I am going to go off. Elect, um, Francesca Hong is electable. Electability is a fucking myth. And the idea that they are trying to force somebody that couldn't get over 3% into the race and cram a bunch of endorsements behind them, I'm telling you right now, this show's going to get a lot more interesting. I have a feeling there's something so freeing. I'm done with news. There's something so freeing about. David says, if they go blue MAGA, you grow green. I dig it. I dig it. But I mean, there isn't a green gubernatorial candidate. Um, I'll tell you, I uh, I feel a lot more comfortable being aggressive on my own because I'm willing to take political heat. This will show you, and to the younger people in my audience, always remember this. I would pull my punches. And I'd be like, you know what? I'm not gonna raise hell because one day I won't be on the air at this station, and I don't want to damage their reputation with the locals here. So I got to keep in mind that I got to stay true to myself while also recognizing that I'm representing an entire company while doing so. Representing just myself, and I mean, I do have sponsors now, but I'm not going to be an asshole. I'm just being real with how I feel. Um, I'm not worried about making enemies politically in here, and I'm not worried about the long-term ramifications of that. And I would never do so in the name of generating ratings or generating buzz. But I swear to God, if we start seeing 2020 stuff start happening, there will be no safe spaces in Wisconsin if that's the case. I don't think this will work for the record. I don't believe for a single second that Crowley getting back in will amount to some kind of massive surge in his campaign in the name of pushing back against a Hong candidacy. Um, I'll be at the Green Party event next Sunday, though, David. Are you going to be there down in Milwaukee? I was asked to be a speaker. So I'm gonna be doing a little thing. I guess Jill Stein's gonna be there. I'm pretty excited about meeting her. Cool. I'm making you want to start a podcast. You should. We'll cross streams. We'll need to rage punch again. I'm pissed off at the idea of it, Ben, says Carla. Yeah, me too. I'm getting pretty angry, but I mean, I'm willing to let the weekend play out. Um, Nothing has actually happened. I'm just allowing my own imagination to kind of carry me to where I need to go, but it's incredibly frustrating. It's an incredibly frustrating reality. I want my grandkids to have all the things I couldn't afford. Then I want to move in with them, Susan says. Um, Haley, I don't know what that means. Can you put Beta Squad 2 taxi drivers? I need help. I need help. Is that Gen Z talk? No, yeah, cross streams is the right way to say that. I have my stream, he has his stream, and then we cross them. What else would that mean? I do know what happened when they crossed streams in Ghostbusters. Magic. Magic is what happened. But all right. I feel like please put 2 taxi drivers, please. I'm gonna need you to elaborate. I'm not on fleek enough for the lingo. I feel lost. Yeah, well, me and Ecuador, we're gonna cross streams, and once we're done, we're gonna pull out our swords and we're gonna fight with them. We're gonna cross streams and sword fight. All right. So on that note, I would like to remind everybody that a subscription is not Allie. And I did it with the hand gesture, the violent hand gesture. It doesn't make any sense, but if you think about it, um, the subscribe button is free and it's right there under the picture. And if you click it, it helps me out a lot in a petty game that I'm playing by myself. Phil just says OMG. Yeah. Uh, but if you could click that, that would be great. I'm also live on the Book of Faces and TikTok, and soon Twitch and a lot of other places. So there's going to be plenty of opportunities for you to do so. Before I go, I'm getting a bunch of private messages via Facebook. I'm just going to see if they're all telling me the same thing. Excuse me. I wonder how many people are letting the people at a certain radio station know all these things. I have a feeling they're doing a great job of competing coverage of this. And this is all live. This is all, I just really want to bask in how well this episode went, all things considered. And you guys are all great. I wouldn't have known any of this if it weren't for you guys telling me. So thank you for that. Tony Evers considering move to draw Crowley back into the governor's race. JS Online is reporting Evers is considering supporting Crowley. Ooh, Tony. Ooh, Tony, we're going to leave it with that. Thank you very much supporting me and my endeavors. Thank you very much for listening. Get out there and let everybody know you're pissed if they actually try and pull this stuff, unless, of course, you're excited about it, in which case, more power to you. Not mad at you. Still want you to be here as a listener. But, I mean, let's get real. I got to get out of here. We're going to jump into this more on Monday, I'm sure, with some breakdown of reaction to what's going on. So take it easy, everybody. We'll talk to you then. Thanks for being here.